On 20th January 1946, in a small town in Montana, one of America's most eccentric filmmakers was born. Their baby was none other than David Keith Lynch, or better known as David Lynch. To most people, Lynch lived in a perfect family. Not surprisingly, Lynch himself didn't fall into this category of most people. He once said, "My parents didn't drink," he continues. "They didn't smoke, they never argued. And I wanted them to smoke, I wanted them to drink, I wanted them to argue, but they never did. I wanted to have strange things to happen in my life. I knew nothing was as it seemed. Not anywhere, but I could never really find proof of it. It was just a feeling." Of course, he would soon get what he wished for as his life took a nasty turn. Moving to Brooklyn, he got what is best described as a more severe culture shock. In many instances, his agoraphobia will kick in, especially whenever he takes the subway. However, this turned out extremely beneficial for him, as at the end of the day, it taught him how to instill fear not only to help his actors, but to instill fear into the audience as well. From a young age, he was never allowed to use coloring books, and this has undoubtedly shaped the way he went on creating his films. He was never restricted by the lines of the pictures on those books. Unlike many filmmakers who confine themselves, Lynch's imagination was out of this world. In Greg Olson's book, Beautifully Dark, Lynch speaks of an incident which resulted in him dropping out of school. So the story goes, while studying in the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, his sculpting teacher was going through a divorce, and at the same time having an affair with another woman. So he asks Lynch whether they could use his sleeping dorm so that they could spend the night together, and at the tender age of 18, Lynch felt obligated and agreed. And from then on, Lynch slept on the floor, while his lecturer and lover continued to occupy the bed, enjoying themselves every night. Never comfortable with confronting people, especially not his lecturer, Lynch opted for another option, to quit school and travel to Europe, in hopes of studying under Oskar Kokoschka. This gave way to how many of his characters would choose to evade and run in a fight-or-flight situation, whether it be driving away to another part of the country in Wild at Heart or committing suicide in Mulholland Drive. Upon arriving in Europe, he realized that the painter had left. Disappointed and homesick, he flew back to America just after 15 days and enrolled in the Pasadena Academy of Fine Arts at the age of 20. And one thing that influenced his style was the living conditions while he was living in Philadelphia. The area was populated with factories. He lived opposite a mall, his house was broken into twice. To top it all off, a kid was once shot half a block away. Although an absolutely horrendous place for a 20-year-old man, it was this that gave Lynch his inspiration for many of his films, which gave way for his dark and horrific style we see in so many of his movies. I personally feel that there's so much more to say about Lynch, but essentially, a lot of his films were based on his own life experience. Moving on to the characteristics of Lynch's filmmaking, I will first be talking about the film movement, which Lynch is most commonly associated to. His films has been clearly associated with the Manifesto of Surrealism, which started in 1920s France. It is important to note that the Surrealism was built on the Dada movement, even though having very different styles, which I'll be further elaborating on. Starting around 1915, the Dada movement produces humorous artworks, referred to sometimes as an anti-art. Many artworks were based off chance or luck. Everything you thought would make a good artwork, the artists of the Dada movement would do the exact opposite. During the early 20s, many Dada filmmakers are already making the transition to Surrealism. However, the Surrealist film movement only officially emerged and took over the Dada movement when Andre Breton wrote the Manifesto of Surrealism. Both movements were similar in that they encouraged randomness, creativity, and imagination. However, the similarities more or less end there. Unlike the Dada films, Surrealist films are dark, leaving no room for anything humorous. It delves deep into the human's subconscious, especially about the character's sexual desires. It believes in the omnipotence of dreams. Thus, filmmakers during the Surrealist heavily focuses on replicating dreams as accurately as possible. While it may seem as a sin in our current time, filmmakers of the era are known to cut between shots. There is no continuity or link to each other. This actively engages the audience to be part of the protagonist's mind and forces the audience to no longer remain as a passive viewer. One consistent element intrinsic to Surrealist films is the strong sexual desires the characters possess, especially the male characters. For example, in Eraserhead, it is of no surprise that Henry's baby is shaped in the form of a male genital. The meaning is clear, to show how man's lust inevitably leads to something obscene and unplanned for. I mean, Just look at that thing. While a lot of David Lynch's films are similar to that of surrealist filmmakers, it's important not to categorize Lynch just under the surrealism category, as there is a certain narrative structure that he likes to use in many of his films, especially his newer ones, for example, The Straight Story. Before moving on to the themes in Lynch's films, it's interesting to note that Lynch himself doesn't like talking about themes, and will rather allow the audience to interpret the film however they like. This was an interview included in the Japanese DVD for Mulholland Drive, and his response when asked the question of what is a theme of Mulholland Drive.
I never talk about themes. A film is, when it's finished, all the elements together in a way that feels correct and feels complete. And that's what goes out. So it's, since it's complete, in my mind, nothing should be talked about more. And
If there is one main overarching theme surrounding Lynch's films, it has to be duality. It's the idea of how human beings can be an angel and slowly fall back into their barbaric nature because of the various circumstances they have to face. It's at this point when the inner demon is released, and human beings become aggressive and violent animals, a complete contrast to the angel they once before. Two films which showcases this best is Wild at Heart and Blue Velvet. In Blue Velvet, initially at the start of the film, Jeffrey was still seen as an innocent and good person. When his father was hospitalized, he helps out with his shop. However, as the story progresses, his sexual desires got to him, and at one point, he dropped to the level of Frank, who is, by the way, the main antagonist of the story. He succumbs to his violent nature and hits Dorothy, just like how Frank does. This shows that beneath the most beautifully decorated things, there is always a sinister and dark underbelly. You just might not see it yet. Another theme is finding happiness only through death. This theme is explored in films like Eraserhead and Elephant Man. In the last scene of Eraserhead, it seems like the only way that Henry was truly able to escape his own misery was to kill his deformed baby by cutting it open. By taking the baby's life, he acts as a form of catharsis for Henry, as he experiences a form of relief. On the other hand, instead of sacrificing another person's life, sometimes characters in Lynch's film might take their own. For example, John Merrick in Elephant Man takes his very own life in hopes of discovering true happiness. Merrick, also known as the Elephant Man, knows that he can never sleep like a normal human being, as his neck cannot sustain the weight of his head. Laying down flat on a bed is something we take for granted. However, for Merrick, it is something he has never been able to do. His desire to feel what it's truly like to be human supersedes the fear of death, and ultimately, he exchanges solace with his very own life, dying happily and peacefully in his sleep. One way to tell it's a David Lynch film is through the different surreal sequences that the characters are put through. For example, in Eraserhead, a majority of the film was so out of the world, like the severely deformed baby and the chicken bleeding during the dinner sequence. Not to mention, the factory workers retrieving DNA from Henry's severed head. In this sequence, some things might not make a lot of sense, but that is actually the whole point. Surrealism is all about dreams, and dreams doesn't always have to be a replication of reality. Another surreal sequence was seen in Mulholland Drive, where two people went to investigate a monster apparently hiding behind a diner. As the two people approach the end of the diner, the monster pops up. I believe this is a very clear example of how David uses a dream-like world in many of his films. And as you can see from the Mulholland Drive example, dreams don't always have to be about our hopes and desires. It can come in the form of nightmares. Another distinct style that makes a David Lynch film is the way he creates mood, particularly using editing, sound, and lighting. On many occasions, he likes to slow things down and take his time with each scene to build up suspense instead of rushing the story. Hence, it doesn't come as a surprise when the master of suspense Hitchcock himself is actually one of his inspirations. Sometimes, the ambient sound he uses can be deafening, whereas others, it might be just a soft electric hum. He also relies mainly on high-key lighting in most of his scenes. However, there will be points in time where he will switch to low-key lighting, which is commonly used in film noirs, especially during the scenes where the character is about to be in grave danger. Take this scene for example from Blue Velvet, where Jeffrey sees a suspicious man coming from the distance. His face is covered mainly by harsh shadows as he recalls that particular man working with Frank, and thus is probably out to kill him. He also likes to engulf his characters in darkness, creating a sense of hopelessness. Last but not least, Lynch loves to express his ideas through various symbols. For example, in many Lynch films, the characters tend to suffer head injuries, whether it be Rita in Mulholland Drive, where she suffered an injury to the head which causes her to lose her memory, or Henry's head getting blown off literally, which symbolizes how Henry wanted to kill himself and end his life. Another head injury was also seen in Wild at Heart, when Celia and Lula passed by one of the passengers of a car accident who suffered a head injury, who eventually dies from excessive blood loss. This actually highlights the impending doom for the couple. Flickering lights is another common symbol, the use of lights flickering and switching on and off, as seen in Mulholland Drive. In the sequence where Adam Keisha confronts the cowboy about casting a particular actor, the light flickers on, but as the conversation ends, the lights flicker back off. This can be seen as David Lynch showing that the character has come to a dead end, pushed up against the wall, and forced to obey. Similarly in Blue Velvet, as Jeffrey shoots Frank in the head, the light flickers off, symbolizing the end of a reign of terror. Last but not least, not forgetting the ending of Eraserhead, as Henry kills his deformed baby, and the lights flickers uncontrollably, before short-circuiting. This can be seen as a way to mark the end of the pain and suffering caused by the baby. Many times, many people will be confused after watching a Lynch film for the very first time, myself included, especially when looking at his earlier works. It is hard to appreciate it because of the lack of context. But in an analysis conducted by Robert Arp and Patricia Brace, much like an astral print, in which a white blank spot was purposefully left right in the middle, which has since led many mathematicians to believe in actual fact that the white patch is actually impossible to fill. Much like a Lynch film, it might seem that things are illogical, but it is actually carefully crafted and controlled by Lynch. It becomes clear why he is regarded as one of America's greatest filmmakers, simply because of the way it evokes certain emotions into the audience, particularly that of discomfort and even terror. The beauty in the Lynch film should be seen as how he is able to create a complex world that centers around a simple story. In a time when many directors like the